Are you targeting roles like Azure Administrator, Developer, Azure DevOps Engineer, or Solutions Architect? Or are you preparing for Azure certification exams? Then this video is your must-watch guide. Today, we are diving into an essential topic, Azure exam preparation strategy. Many people have the knowledge but still struggle to clear exams due to not having the right strategy. The way questions are framed, the time-sensitive nature of the exam, and the pressure of making decisions quickly can trip people up. So we'll cover the crucial steps you must take before starting your exam to avoid any common mistakes. Additionally, we'll touch on several key certifications such as AZ900 Azure Fundamentals, which is perfect for beginners, as well as more advanced certifications like AZ104 Azure Administrator, AZ204 Azure Developer, AZ305 Azure Solutions Architect Expert, AZ500 Azure Security Engineer, and AZ400 Azure DevOps Engineer. So let's dive in and make sure you're ready to ace your certification. We'll also explain how you can approach these certifications, the necessary prerequisites, and what Microsoft recommends for your learning journey. And here's what some of our learners achieved after attending our programs. Plus, if you're looking to level up your career, I've got a fantastic opportunity for you. Our free Azure Cloud Masterclass. You'll get hands-on experience with Azure tools and techniques, which is exactly what you need to ace these exams. So make sure to register for the Azure Cloud Masterclass through the link in the description and pinned comments. So let's get started with the video.
So in this particular session, we're going to talk about from the certification perspective that if I need to prepare for any particular certification, what all do's and don'ts that I need to be aware of, how to approach, because when it comes to clearing the examination, it's more about the strategy. Because I've seen there are people who have good knowledge, but they flung in the examination because they are not prepared the way the examination is asking the questions, or sometimes they have lack of time. They are not used to with the time sensitive situations when it comes to giving the correct answers, or they got confused with any of the options, right? So how to approach. So the agenda of this particular discussion will be that how to book the examination. If I'm booking a particular examination, while starting the examination, people usually get flunked at that point of time. They end up closing the session and they keep on repeating the things, right? So just to avoid that, just to give you a perspective that how you will be, managing the situation during the examination and what to do before you will be going in an examination requirement. Okay. So in today's session, we're going to talk about certain certification like your Azure Developer, which is AZ204 course, Azure Administrator, that is AZ104, Azure Solution Architect, Expert, that is for 305, and Azure Fundamentals, that is AZ900, Azure Security AZ500, and Azure DevOps Engineer, that is AZ400. Now, there are certain courses that you can directly go ahead and um, appear for the examination, and there are no previous certification that Microsoft is asking. Like you can go for AZ900, which is optional, because there might be people who are already working on cloud platform. So AZ900 is something that if you are totally new to the cloud business and you would like to get some understanding to that, you can go for that. Azure DevOps Engineer have a dependency that either one should have a certification of AZ204 before that or AZ104. The reason behind it, when you work on any DevOps based requirement for creating any CI/CD pipelines, or creating any built-in artifact, or deploying any code with the help of CI/CD pipeline on the infrastructure, one should have either an infrastructure knowledge that you cover using, during your training for AZ104, or if somebody who is already working in the development section. So you can have the associate level course, let's say AZ204, that maybe I'm not aware about the infra, but I'm aware how the code works and what all dependencies that we required, what is actually the build and the release, that I'm already been familiar and I'm already dealing with those components, right? So either of them, either 104 or either 204 can be a prerequisite. Now, it's not the case that you cannot directly appear for the DevOps certification. You can also appear directly as well. If you're already working as a DevOps engineer for past many years, then maybe my requirement is only AZ 400. So I may not want to opt, because let's say I'm already working from past 10 years. So those kind of the things can be there that you can directly appear for that. But if you are a new, it is recommended by the Microsoft that you should do either AZ104 or AZ204 course. Similarly, if you are appearing for the solution architect examination, So solution architect examination is moreover the decision making examination, that they will give you the scenario, there will be a case study, and on the basis of the case study you need to come up with a required solution. Now what happened that when you approach for the solution architect, you should know what exactly you are solutioning. The problem happens that if somebody go for solution architect and they don't have the implementation knowledge, they get confused. And in architecting there is nothing right or wrong. So whenever we are making, and in order to take a right decision, you should aware about the implementation. So for AZ305 there is a prerequisite AZ104, and AZ104 is your administrator examination, where we talk about if you are doing any of the solutioning from the implementation perspective, how that particular resource need to be handled, what are the other areas that you need to be aware of for integrating those services. Let's say my database required the integration of the web application, what all things that I can do. Should I go ahead and utilize a service endpoint, private endpoint, selected network endpoint that is also a service endpoint? Or further, what you can utilize, that if I will be creating this connectivity, what is defense in depth model and how we need to bring the key vault if in case I need to store the connection string. So these are some of the examples that required the implementation understanding, that if I'm implementing it, what exactly I'm trying to achieve. So if you understand that particular part from the implementation perspective, AZ305 when it comes to clearing that particular examination. So one should have the implementation knowledge before they are even an architect. Otherwise, definitely there will be challenges. I hope this is making sense to everyone. Team information and try to be interactive. Not really. I mean, from the Microsoft, what it says that prerequisite for getting a badge, right? You see whatever icons that you're seeing on the screen, these are badges, right? People say that I would like to show this particular badge, right? Now, if you have directly appear for 305, you will not get the badge, right? But if somebody need to put this particular badge on the resume, that, I am a solution architect expert, they are calling them as an expert, right? So if that is the case, then you have to follow the prerequisite, right? Because company should be aware, because let's say there are openings in the company, right? Now, let's say they have 10 openings. Now, out of 10 openings, let's say they got the 1,000 resume, but nobody is going to conduct the interview for 1,000 people. So how they will going to shortlist the resume? By stating that I'm going to take the interview only for those people who have X number of the experience plus who have these certifications. So automatically out of 1,000, there will be, let's say, around 50 resume or 100 resume will be shortlisted. And out of those 100, then your experience comes into the picture. Then within the resume, what all implementation that you have done and whether it is matching as per the requirement of that particular profile or not, right? The same goes with the promotion as well. Let's say there is a promotion of a senior solution architect and they are looking for a people from the network infrastructure. Now, until and unless you have not done more implementation over the networking, definitely that you. The reason behind they are looking for a principal solution architect. They are looking for an expert up to that level that any sort of the network related security or the infra related security, the person is capable of taking the decision. Depends on that. Any bad decision can impact the security of the company, which can lead to multi-dollar lawsuit as well to the company if the breach happens. Because let's say if a banking firm gets compromised, right, they will be under the scrutiny and the bank can lose the banking license as well. The same goes with your hospitals if the data gets stolen for any particular insurance company. So these are pretty serious matters. And if the person is the decision maker of a company like that, definitely they should have to understand all the pros and consequences of that particular decision. And until somebody do not understands that, it will be a tough job on day-to-day basis. Is this making sense, team? All of us?
Yep.
Now, organization have also a intermediate level job. For an example, the organization is looking for, let's say, somebody from the administrator perspective, right? That if somebody have an administrative knowledge, that they should be able to implement the things accordingly. And further, organization have the administrator like network administrator, people who are dealing with the firewall level rules or network security level rules that needs to be created, or probably the person who will be working as an Azure Active Directory administrator. And further, you have the job openings probably from a perspective of let's say you have a past solutions, let's say an app service that you are trying to manage, how that particular app service implementation is happening, right? Those sort of the requirements associated with it, right? So for that level of the entry, where you are looking for a cloud engineer or a senior cloud engineer, but not for somebody who is at the architect level, right? Level 1 or level 2 engineers. In that particular case, you can go for AZ 104. There are certain jobs which are specific to the security. When it comes to security management, let's say there is a account related team who is dealing with the communication, how the things happen, only associated with Azure Active Directory and the domain controller, like creating the conditional access policies, what policies will be implemented to which particular group of the people, depending what line of business these organizations are handling, those group of people, and what kind of the role that needs to be assigned. Apart from that, if there is a database communicating with the web application, what kind of the security a database should have before it will be communicating internally with the application or the externally with the application. There are certain whitelisting that needs to be done or not, any sort of the firewall integration coming into the picture, what kind of the application we are using, and as per that application, what set of the firewall rules that we need to create, and all those decisions and the implementation will be taken, right? So for that, definitely one should have the security knowledge. So if the company is working on the security section, or maybe the profile is only from the security line of business, you can go for AZ 500. And it is also an intermediate level job that we are talking about. The senior most people probably from your DevOps engineer or probably your solution architect, right? Now, let's say I'm a developer. Now, I have spent 20 years in development only. And now I would like to move my entire experience towards the cloud, that I would like to create these web application, but I don't have a knowledge that how exactly the cloud works. But I'm a developer. I don't want to change my line of business or my expertise, because for 20 years, what will happen to that experience if I try to move in any other line of business? So if that is the case, that you would like to be continuing as a software engineer or an application developer and a full stack developer, where now my companies is under the transition, they are bringing the entire code baseline on the cloud itself. For those kind of the requirement, you have AZ 204, which is also an associate level requirement in the cloud. So if that's the story, you can go for Azure Developer examination as well. Now, moving ahead, any questions, any queries apart from, we'll go ahead and talk about how the question comes and what to do for the preparation. But from the certification standpoint, are we good, team? All of us? Okay. So thank you for that question. So what happened when you are appearing for the examination? In the very beginning, it will going to ask you that what level of the experience that you have and how long you are working on the cloud. So let's say if you're selecting 6 months or 1 year, the chances of the practical questions are pretty less, because practical takes time and it's a time sensitive exam where you are getting around 2 hours for any intermediate level or the expert level examination. So within a span of 2 hours and 2 hours, 15 minutes, definitely any big practical can be a challenge. But as per the way the questions are framed, until you don't have the implementation knowledge, it will be tough to crack that examination. So the answer is, it is very less likely that Microsoft is going to ask for the practical until somebody is selecting 5 years of the already experience on the cloud before starting the exam, which is again a very less likely scenario, because anybody who is clearing the certification, definitely those are not the way much expert from last 15 years people are working on the cloud. Practical, let's say 0.001% that there is a chance. However, to crack the examination, you do require a practical knowledge. So whatever labs that Microsoft is providing in terms of training, right? We need to be thorough with that. So Rohit, did I answer your question? All right. All right, team. So moving ahead. So Azure certification. Now Azure certification path, right? So this is what I have already mentioned, that AZ fundamental is again the entry level course, and then you can go for AZ 104, 204 or AZ 500, which is an associate level examination, and then you can go for the expert, that is AZ 305 and AZ 400. Now exam duration. So if you are appearing for entry level examination, that is AZ 900, and if you are going for any other 900 course like AI 900, that if you are appearing for, or if you're appearing for, let's say, your DP 900 for database and the data engineers, again, the duration will be 45 minutes. 65-minute is a seat duration that if you're appearing for the examination, you have to be available at least 20 to 30 minutes before that, because there are other formalities that you need to go through. Your invigilator for the examination will ask that you need to take your laptop to showcase the entire room, that nobody is sitting over there. Then you will have to put some IDs that they will going to take a screenshot before you are going for the examination. And then after you are done with all these kind of the requirements over here, right, for the examination, and the formalities, what is required for that somebody who is a legitimate person to appear for the examination, that takes time, because you need to take a picture, you need to upload those pictures as well if you are going for examination from your own location. Otherwise, you do have the option for the Pearson view locations as well. There are examination centers that you can go for. They will go ahead and do the verification on your behalf. You will just provide the details, and rest you can go for the examination. They will allocate your workstation and you can appear for that examination as well. But it's mandatory that you should have at least 30 minutes as a buffer. Let's say putting my examination at 4 p.m. in the evening, right? So I should be available at 3:30, even in the examination center, or even if you're appearing it online. So associate level examination will have the duration of 100 minutes. Again, the same story, 20 minutes, you can take it as a buffer. And then associate and the expert role level examination will be 120 minutes, and take it 20 minutes and 30 minutes as a buffer over here. Now, labs can be removed at any time due to Azure outage and the bandwidth issue, etc. So Microsoft does not provide a list of exam with the lab. When you register for the examination, you will be provided with the examination time. And when you launch the examination, carefully review the overview page that provides the information about what to expect to exam, and including if the labs are available or not. Now, for an example, let's say I'm appearing for a development course, right? Now, in the development level, definitely there will be a syntax, right? And they will ask you to choose the appropriate syntax, right? Now, if you have done that particular lab or you have used that particular syntax, it will be a few second job. Otherwise, all the options look pretty much familiar. So if somebody has done less lab or they have done no lab, definitely it will create a confusion. So that is one thing. So be careful while you are reading all these instructions. Another thing, there will be certain questions that you will not get a choice to move back. Let's say I have selected the options, I'm moving forward, but there won't be going back that I will be able to do so. For most of the questions, you can review it, but there are certain questions you may not. So make sure that while reading that particular question, those instructions which has been highlighted on the very top or in the beginning of any particular section which is getting started, be attentive and read those sections carefully. Moving ahead, in most of the cases, you can choose to take your examination online or at one of your own test centers. As I mentioned, that you can go for online examination. So while you book your examination, it will give you those options. Test centers are great choice if you prefer quiet and pre-configured environment. So team, we know the internet fluctuation happens, right? And that can happen to your house as well. And while during your examination, it will be a blunder. So make sure that if you're appearing for the online examination to your house, you have a stable internet connectivity, at least say 30 to 100 Mbps. And the another thing, you should have a internet backup, that once electricity cut down or there will be a power outage, your internet remain continued. I mean, it should not be down at that point of time, right? If you have a backup, your router is not going down, it's the best choice. Apart from that, you should have a any particular dongle that you can keep aside, or your phone should have enough data. If in case such kind of a thing happen, you can immediately able on the safer side as a precautionary. Otherwise, there can be an issue. If you are going to the online centers, you don't need to worry about that. I mean, if you are going to your Pearson view centers, you don't need to worry about that, because they have backup connectivity and you can just appear for the examination from that, because those locations are being trialed and tested by Microsoft authorities, right? So that is something that you can go for. Online examination, you can take the freedom to take examination almost anywhere, but you will be responsible for making sure that your computer and your exam area meet the security standard. So what happened that when you book the examination, right? So during that, it will give you an option to download a tool which will going to do a test associated with the browser and your local machine. Now, let's say if you're using your company laptops, better not to use your company laptops. The reason behind it, your company laptops are domain joined. It will have a lot of securities and the policies, so that can cause issue before or during the examination as well. You never know what security has been implemented. Maybe initially you have tested, later on during the examination it has caused intermittent issue or maybe blocked certain URLs which Microsoft is providing you as a question. So make sure that if you are appearing for the examination, use your personal machines and do a pre-test what Microsoft is saying on the basis of the browser. You can run that particular test, all the drivers are there or not. Another thing, you should not be using your headset. Your microphone of your laptop or your desktop should be working fine, so that once your examination start, your screen will be monitored, your face is also getting monitored, what you are going for, and they will not allow you to wear any headset or any particular earphone or a Bluetooth earphones. Because what if somebody is giving answers to you, or maybe in the another room where the laptop is shared? So make sure that your microphones are working absolutely fine. So the test, what they do, apart from the security, they will also have the configuration test as well. So make sure that your micro speakers are working absolutely fine. So without any headset or without any Bluetooth earphone, you should be able to communicate with your invigilator. Make sense? Team, any queries here? Can I get a quick confirmation if this part is pretty much clear to everybody? So moving ahead, test center staff greets you in the lobby. So once you open that particular session, take an exam, right? There will be a chat window which will be open that you can chat as well. And they understand that when you are appearing the examination online, things happens. Sometimes people end up closing the session, what they don't meant to. Accident happens, right? So for that, test staff will be available. That will be available in the chat as well, right? So you can either speak or you can either communicate with them as well. Two form for the ID required. One must be a government issued ID with a photo. So in that particular case, what you should have, if you are in India, probably it will be an Aadhaar. If you are in US, it will be a VAT ID, or it can be a PAN card as well, or probably it will be a social security number if you are appearing to the US. So just read that particular thing, what they are looking for, and keep them handy while you are appearing for the examination next to your desktop or desk, right? And you just show them. And you must have empty your pockets and lock your personal contents. M- Ideal approach, people have this cell phone thing, always next to them. Ideally, while you are going for an examination, once you are done with the verification, keep your cell phone out of that particular room to avoid the disturbance, or because they may try to reach you over the cell phone. If you pick the call, examination will be terminated then and there, because you are answerable to the phone during the examination, and it will appear in the recording as well. Make sure we should not have any such kind of the disturbances. Better to either keep a phone on silent, or if it is not emergency, keep your phone in the shutdown mode while you are appearing for the examination, or in the flight mode, and put it in the another room or something. You are escorted to your test center PC to the electronically to take the test, and you must sign a non-disclosure agreement, right? So in the test center, you have to sign, and what kind of the government IDs that you are providing, that you have to document over there. If you're appearing online, right, and there will be an agreement, you can just simply click on it. You will have a digital signature that you can put, and you can proceed further on your online examination as well. From the Home Office, the certification exam is procured remotely via streaming audio and video, and the screen sharing feeds. And the screen sharing feed allows Protector. So Protector is nothing; it's your invigilator to view candidates' desktop, including all the monitors, and the video and audio and screen sharing feeds will be for a limited period of time in the event that there is subsequent need for review as well. So they will record later on, it can be reviewed as well. So make sure that we are meeting all the required criteria, what it has been asked for. Now, for booking any examination, we can just simply open the browser and you can say XYZ exam, let's say exam for AZ204. So for an example, if you are appearing for AZ204 exam, you can just simply say AZ204 exam. and there is an option book your exam, right? So you can just click on this particular link. After clicking on this particular link, you will have this option of selecting the online examination, and depending on your location, the charges will be applied. So here you can see that you have the schedule your exam, right? And you can select your country as well. So make sure that we have selected this correctly, right? Because the time zones are different. If you select different countries, definitely you might be thinking 4 p.m. It will not be the same 4 p.m. that you will be appearing for the examination, right? So make sure that you have selected the right country and you can schedule your examination. Once you try hitting on the schedule examination option, you will be getting this particular window, what we are seeing in the PPT at the moment. So you will enter your address, the country code, and once your phone number and the email address, what you will be utilizing, make sure that you will be using your Microsoft account. In some cases, you might want to use your company account, but better if you have a Microsoft account, because if you change your company, right, that email address will be a dicey situation. So make sure that you will be using something that is under your possession without any organization interference, right? So you can have your own Microsoft account created. As you can see, in person at the test center, or you can go for view options as well. There is a your testing space is there. You can select that particular option. So there will be four things. Your computer test, you can see over here, there is a system test is mentioned. If you download this and run the test, it will check all the required drivers and all your required security setting. Any particular software will be running in the background. For an example, any application which is not secure as per Microsoft standard, you may need to uninstall those applications from the system. That is the reason I'm emphasizing use your personal computer, because you can make those changes on a fly as well. But in your organization laptop, you can't install anything without your IT or a help desk ticket. So make sure that we are using our personal computers. After that, you will going to have the test space. Here, you need to provide your government ID and the photos of that particular room that you will be sitting. Make sure that during your examination, nobody is entering in that particular room, because the moment somebody enters, the examination will be cancelled then and there. Especially people who have young kids, 4 year, 5 year, they can hop into your room any given point of time. Make sure that that room is locked so that you will not be getting cancellation from the Microsoft. The another thing that you have the photo ID thing that you will going to upload, and then what to expect. There will be examination 30 minutes before your appointment. There will be a short video which is available that you can go ahead and watch what Microsoft is mentioning. So 30 minutes will be the key that you should be appear. Provide all these details, select your language for the preference, what you would like to see in the questions, select your dates when you would like to appear for your examination, and schedule your examination. So there is book this appointment and check the slots. Some slots may be occupied, you may not see, or it is grayed out over there, you might not be able to select. So use that option accordingly. Passing score is 70%. You need to score 700 marks. So this examination is for 1000 marks paper. And usually you will get around 50 to 55 question for the associate or expert level examination. So if you see over here that 50 questions, each question will be of 20 marks. And out of 20, out of 1000, we are passing marks will be greater than or equal to 700 over here. So technical examination, all technical examination scores are reported on a scale between 1 to 1000, and a passing score is 700. One more thing, team, there is no negative marking, right? So do not be hesitant attempting the question. Make sure that if you have invested the time, at least mark the answer, so that even though if you didn't get an opportunity to come back to that particular page again, you still have the chance to get the right answer over there, right? And there will be multiple choice question. So if there will be multiple choice, still you will get the partial marks as well. Let's say I have selected two options, B and C. B is correct, C is incorrect, or vice versa. You still get the partial marks as well in multi-choice question. Uh, we'll talk more on the question aspect. So here, your passing is based on the knowledge and the skill needed to demonstrate acceptance as well as the difficulty of the questions. When answering most of the multi-part questions, you will receive 1 point for each correctly answered component, and you can earn all, some, or none of the points is possible for the question. If a question is worth more than 1 point, it will be noted in the question. Usually, you will receive 1 point for each correctly answered question over here. So there is no penalty for guessing. So if you choose incorrect answer, you simply won't earn the point for the question or a part. So no points are deducted with the incorrect answer. And some questions of the examination may not be included in your score. These questions are used to gather data to update and improve the quality of each examination. That you are pretty much aware that there will be beginning of the examination, they will have some questions. However, as soon as we have the necessary data to evaluate the quality of the questions that meets your psychometric standards, so will be scored, and you won't know which questions are unscored. So you should answer every question as if it will be included in your score, right? So that's all what you need to be aware of before starting your examination. Now, how you can manage your time. One thing, team, how to prepare for your examination, make sure that you are pretty much familiar with all the labs. Second, Microsoft has created a beautiful documentation in this particular page itself, right? So you have all the section. So one thing, your practical knowledge, another thing, your theoretical understanding, right? So make sure that we have completed this, right? So this is also available on the Cloud K2 and Academy portal, that from each and every topic we have created a theoretical section as well that one should be aware of, right? So knowing the topic but answering the question are slightly two things, because questions can have its own manipulations. For an example, let's say if somebody asks that you need to create a connectivity from on-premises to the cloud with the economical requirement and security is not the concern, you can go for a VPN gateway. But if they change the statement that we need to create the connectivity from on-premises to the cloud and the security is the concern and we are looking for high bandwidth over here, the answer changed to expressed out. And the requirements are met with both the questions. However, with one situation to the another, the answers vary, right? So make sure that we are reading that particular questions properly. Completing the lab, theoretical understanding has to be there. And then we have also created some of the practice papers that you can go for. So let's say I'm preparing for the examination for a month. I only have 1 week left. I can start practicing the questions. Another thing, do not attempt those questions with half of the knowledge. Reason behind questions are limited. And when you don't have the knowledge, you end up remembering the question. Do not do that. The questions are for your exercise of your knowledge and your brain. If you are not aware about the topic, better not to even indulge yourself in those kind of the question during the preparation. Making sense, team? All of us? Team, is this clear to everybody? Complete your labs, complete your theoretical understanding, only then test the questions. There is no point that, okay, I have completed one topic, let's go ahead and try and just try some more questions which are out of the topic. There is no point. Yeah. Topics are integrated, interrelated, right? And with half of the info, we will not going to have the clear understanding of the question. Once you are done with that, you have 1 week, 2 week time, 3 week time that you would like to give after the completion of all this. Definitely go ahead and do that. Now for Easy 900, right? So as per the candidate for the certification, your technology professional who wants to demonstrate the foundational knowledge on the cloud concept in general, the Microsoft Azure in particular, the certification is a common starting point in a journey towards a career in Azure. So you should have the skill and experience working with an area of IT such as infrastructure management, database management, and your software development. So for that particular requirement, you can have the Azure Fundamental. The cost of this particular examination in US is $99. So this screenshot is taken as per the US. This will vary once you change the country as well, right? So choose your country location, schedule your examination. Now, this is how your AZ 900 has been divided in terms of this section over here. Describe your cloud concepts. So what are the cloud concepts? Like if you're aware what is a public cloud, private cloud, if you know what is a scalability, what is fault tolerance, what is the high availability concept, right? So if you're aware of that, you should get 20 to 30% marks easily in the examination. So out of the distribution of 50 questions, 25 to 30% out of those 50 to 55 questions you will get 25 to 30% questions belongs to your cloud concept. If you're aware about the architectural bond, what is availability zone, what is availability set, if if we are putting it under the zone, how the SLA will be met, those kind of the criteria, you can easily score 35 to 40% marks. What is the pair location? What is the governance, right? Those kind of a thing. And describe your Azure management and the governance. Now, for this, you should have the understanding that what are the Azure resources are, what is your network, what is your VPN gateway, Apart from that, what is your Azure Active Directory, and what are the other requirement for hosting any web applications like web app, what is container, what is AKS, and what is exactly your SQL Pass database and the storage account. And you should be aware how you should be able to open the support ticket with Microsoft. If I need to see any particular outage, how I can check the status associated with it, or if Microsoft is bringing any feature new into the market, how I should be able to see that preview features and all those kind of the information. So if you are aware how to manage the policies component, what is role based assignment, you can easily score 30 to 35%. Now you can see all the three are important because passing marks is 70%, and if you see the weightage, and the minimum weightage is also carrying between 25 to 30%, right? So make sure that we have gone through with all the required modules over here: compute, networking, and storage. And what kind of the questions you can expect in the examination? The question types will be multiple choice. That is one type. Then there will be a drag and drop. So you can have like match the following, that out of these four options, what all four options will be equivalent or will be required with integrated towards a particular architecture. So you just need to drop those particular answers to that particular options one by one. There can be a fill in the blanks that they will have a syntax. If you are a developer, they will miss one of the syntax and ask you to choose one. If you're an architect, then during the decision making, they will remove one particular component. They will have four options, that out of these four options, which is the most suitable component. So that can be there. No penalty, as mentioned before. 90 minutes to complete this examination. You can mark the question for the future consideration as well. Some question you can come back, you can always review. So please mark the answers. What if you don't get time in the end? So make sure we are marking the questions for future consideration, and you can come back. You can always review those questions as well. Before submitting the examination, you can review those questions and which question you marked so that you can go back to them easily. Passing marks, we are aware about it. All right. So let's have a question over here. A company wants to migrate its current on-premises servers to the Azure. They want to ensure that the servers are running even if a single Azure data center goes down. Which of the following terms refers to a solution that needs to be in place to fulfill the requirement? Fault tolerance, elasticity, scalability, and low latency. Now, as the answer is already given, that the answer is fault tolerance, but why it is not elasticity? Can you tell me, team, what is elasticity over here? What it is referring to? What is scalability and what is low latency? Real quick, team. And don't be hesitant of giving any incorrect answer, team. Everybody is learning quickly. Okay. Is it also include to scale down as well? Right? So it is not always increase and decrease as well, right? That you can increase the number of the instances horizontally to add more, right? Virtual machine, or you can increase the size or you can decrease the size, right? So elasticity is referred to the change in the size of the configuration or increasing more number of the resources on auto scale, or decreasing the number on the basis of the auto scaling condition. Scalability is again increasing the number of the resources, a specific term. That is the reason scalability, for increasing the size or increasing horizontally. Low latency is the terminology where you have included performance. Now, performance is relative. What does that mean? Network performance, data replication performance, right? Or read and write performance. So these are relative terms. For the read and write performance, it will be the disk. For network latency, it will be what kind of the network connectivity you will be using, what kind of the bandwidth you have selected. And further, when it comes to the data replication, what are the location that you have selected for the disaster recovery? So those kind of the consideration will come into the picture. Now, currently they are looking for highly available solution. Highly available means that even one data center goes down, my another data center continue to play. So over here, the answer will be fault tolerance. So two approach, either you know the answer or either you can eliminate the other options. Make sense? Team, got the approach? No. In this question, no, definitely not. Because this is not multi-choice. All right. Now we have this another question, that an application consists of set of virtual machine hosted in a virtual network in a month, and the application seems to have a load of around 20% for 3 weeks. During the last week, the load of an application reaches 80%. Which of the following benefit of Azure could or would ensure the cost and efficiency of the underlying application infrastructure? high availability, elasticity, disaster recovery, and the fault tolerance over here. Let's talk about high availability. Okay. Now, why it is not high availability? Can anybody let me know real quick? Backup is required a downtime. Backup cannot be considered as highly availability, right? It is for the business continuity. Let's say you have a data corruption, right? So even though if you have a highly available solution, you cannot fix the data corruption, even though if you have 2 servers or 20 or 100 servers, right? Machine is available and active. Absolutely. Because there can be a possibility all the servers are under occupancy, right? Let's say what if all the servers are hitting 100%? You have high availability, but you don't have the enough capacity. So here the requirement is your capacity. Requirement is not checking that how many servers that you are saying. They are saying that you are reaching up to 20% initially, and the last week is reaching up to 80%. So here the requirement is that you required instant capacity. For the entire month, you are not looking for capacity, but only for last week that I'm looking for a capacity requirement, right? Let's say there is a Black Friday sale and you are working in the retail firm. Now at your payment gateway, there will be multiple requests only during the Black Friday sale or probably a New Year week. Now we required resources only for that specific duration of the time, right? So this is not a high availability concern. This is the part of your capacity planning, right? Now, if these 4 options have another option, let's say scalability. So what we could have choose is elasticity or scalability? Elasticity, because it is also required a decrease in the numbers as well once the traffic goes down or the utilization goes down, right? So the answer will always be elasticity in such kind of the condition because it is the demand of the fluctuating requirement. We are not saying that we required server only to increase over here. So currently the option is not a scalability, but scalability is a confusing option as well, right? Because that can confuse people that, okay, let's go ahead and select scalability because now we required more servers, right? So be diligent to pick that particular requirement, that it is not only try to increase, because what if the 80% is getting lower, right? Disaster recovery cannot be the case because disaster recovery happens to be available during a regional level outage. And when we talk about a regional level outage, the architecture becomes an active passive. Clear? This is not a, because it is talking about disaster recovery, right? So it can be active as well, but there is no mention of, again, it is bringing the high availability discussion again. So disaster recovery can't be an option. Fault tolerance is about your application, that your application or a server having an issue and it is continue to function. But if any server reaching a 90% or 80%, definitely it cannot be say fault tolerance because it doesn't have enough capacity, right? So not, I mean, nevertheless, your machine is capable of handling a lot of faults, but there is no replacement once machine will be hitting more than 80 to 90%. Definitely the end user will start facing sluggishness and it may lead to your shutdown as well if it is touching more than 95 to 100%. Clear, team? So the answer is elasticity. I hope it is making sense to all of us. So either pick a right choice or eliminate the other options. Clear, team? Now, similarly, you have about your examination for AZ 104. So again, a candidate of the certification, you should have a subject matter expertise in the implementing and managing and monitoring an organization Azure environment, including your Azure network, storage, compute, identity, that is your Azure Active Directory, and security and governance. So, and as an Azure administrator, you often serve as a part of a larger team dedicated to implementing an organization cloud infrastructure, and you also coordinate with the other roles to deliver Azure networking, security, database, application development, and your DevOps solution over here. Now, here the application development is from the infrastructure perspective, is not from the code perspective. I hope this is making sense to everyone. Team?
Yeah.
This we discussed, right, in the beginning? So you should be familiar with your operating system, networking, servers, and the virtualization. Again, you can select your country location. You can see the cost associated with that. The same rule applies. You will get multiple choice, drag and drop requirements of the question, fill in the blanks, no penalty. Examination duration over here will be slightly more in comparison to the previous one. Previous was 90. It can be between 100 to 120 minutes as well. And the passing marks remains the same. Now, this examination have major 4 modules. The first is managing Azure identities and governance. So if you know how to deal with your identities like user, group of users, or creating service principal or manage identity, you can easily score 20 to 25%. Implementing and managing your storage like SQL PaaS databases, your storage account that you will be creating, your disk that you will be utilizing over here, you can easily score 15 to 20%. Deploy and manage your Azure compute resources. So when we talk about compute, it is about your servers, virtual machine skill set, app service where you can host your application. What is exactly an app service plan? And container instance where you will be hosting your containers, and your Kubernetes clusters where you will be running your containerization solution, right? So it requires a knowledge. So the third module, you can help easily getting 20 to 25% marks. Implement and manage your virtual networking. So what is your VNet? How the VNet can be integrated via VNet pairing, VPN gateway, and the express route. What is your network security group? How you can try to create your Azure firewall and manage them. Application security group. And then further your load balancing, Azure load balancers, application gateway, traffic managers, and your Azure front-end services. So if you have these knowledge, you can easily score 15 to 20% marks in your examination. Monitor and maintain your Azure resources 10 to 15%. If you know how to pick the right sizing, how to manage these components, which particular option. So this is a kind of a test of the navigation that you have. And then further, your monitoring components like your log analytics workspace, application insight, network watcher, Microsoft Defender for cloud. So if you have the understanding to that, you can easily score 10 to 15% marks. Clear, team? Any questions here? All good? All right. All right. So here comes the sample questions. So there can be a scenario-based question over here. So you can see your company has 3 offices. The offices are located in Miami, Los Angeles, and your network and your New York. Each office contains a data center, and you have an Azure subscription that contain resources in East US, West US regions, and each region contain your virtual network. The virtual networks are paired at, and you need to connect the data centers to the subscription. The Azure must minimize the network latency between the data center. What should you create? So you have the choice available over here that you can use an application gateway and your on-premises data gateway, 3 virtual network hubs and 1 virtual WAN, 3 virtual WAN and 1 virtual hub, and your virtual hub is your VNet hub, and the 3 on-premises data gateways and your 1 Azure application gateway, right? So if you approach this question, A and why A and D can't be a choice? Because when we talk about application gateway is layer 7 load balancer that we utilize to distribute the traffic to achieve high availability and to provide the security to the application, because it has the web application firewall ability as well. And it does support SSL termination and the TLS offloading that you can upload your certificates as well. So the A and D can't be a choice because it is not required for creating the connectivity. As per the question, it is asking for the solution for creating the connectivity. Now the confusion will be between B and C, where it says 3 hub and 1 virtual WAN and 3 virtual WAN and 1 virtual hub over here. Now, hub and spoke is a topology. In any network, you can create hub and spoke topology, and it is created to centralize the traffic from a particular center location. Let's say I have a firewall in one network and I want other traffic to flow through the firewall before reaching to any particular destination like a junction. But here the requirement is not achieving a firewall or any particular junction where you required a centralized hub. We required a centralized hub over here for creating a network connectivity. Clear, team? So we are not creating any particular network related hub over here where we are putting some firewall in a center and we are creating the connectivity, because that is not the requirement of the architecture. Now, what is a virtual WAN? Virtual WAN is nothing. It is a centralized pane through which you can create multiple connectivity even on the cloud, even to the on-premises. So if your company have multiple sites, they want to have a centralized hub in terms of managing these connectivity. So only for the connectivity, you can require a single WAN, that is your wide area network, and that can be centrally managed to create connectivity across your location, whether it is on same cloud or a different cloud or your on premises. So answer is B, 3 virtual hub and 1 virtual WAN. Making sense? Team, are we following over here? It's not about the money, it's about fulfilling the requirement. See, money comes when they try to opt for a particular solution. For an example, you have 3 choices, right? For creating the connectivity. But let's say out of these 3 choices, one is helping us, right? And in the question, nowhere it is mentioned as the cost right now, right?
Okay.
So it's never about the cost, especially in this particular question. It's about meeting the requirement. Now, okay, let's understand the functionality of a WAN. What is the WAN? Wide area network. Why we create a wide area network? To manage other networks from a central place, right?
Right.
vWAN. So if I have a central WAN which can help me creating the connectivity. Now in this scenario, we have 3. Even if there would have been 5, 15 or 20, it will be a single virtual WAN only. You got the point?
Okay.
Clear, team? So it always be a single virtual WAN. The purpose of a virtual WAN to manage multiple connectivity from a centralized location. So if I'm getting that opportunity, definitely I will be using that virtual WAN. Multiple virtual WAN will only come into the picture if I have created a segregation. Let's say I have a virtual WAN only for the US, and in the US itself I have 20 sites, and I have created another virtual WAN for another location probably, which is not the case, right? Here we are keeping it only East US and West US location. And as these are already a US based location, a single virtual WAN will do the needful for you. Even the networks are in different countries as well. You should be able to use a single virtual WAN until and unless somebody explicitly say that we have a compliance requirement. The Europe network should not communicate with the North American location, those kind of a thing, which is highly rare because it is just a connectivity. We are not keeping any particular data over here for any GDPR requirements. All right. Hub and spoke model is your network hub. Okay. Virtual WAN for creating the connectivity. You remember I created a virtual WAN just to showcase, right? That it has all the options that you can have VPN gateway expressed out. Hub is
Yes.
the topology. It's not about Azure or the on-premises. It can be in any network. And the questions. Your company has an Active Directory subscription. You want to implement Azure AD conditional access policy, and the policy must be configured to required members of the global administrator group to use multi-factor authentication and the AD joint. And the device, when they connect to the Azure AD from the untrusted location. Solution, you can access the multi-factor authentication page to alter the user setting. Does the solution meet the criteria or your required goal? Yes or no? So we are aware about the answer that it is no. Can you tell me why? What is the requirement here, team? Read the line number second. Anyone, team, what is conditional access policy? It's a condition, right? You can give multiple conditions, whether a person is accessing a cloud-based application from a certain browser, from a certain device, what particular group the person is in, whether it is allowed from a particular location or not, right? So what are these? These are criteria, just like your interview process, right? So interview is the process of selection. Whomsoever meet the criteria will be selected. Same goes with your conditional access policy as well. Multi-factor authentication security you bring just to ensure the end user is legitimate. That if I'm trying to log in, how you know that I'm trying to log in, not somebody else? So what you do, you create an additional dependency on the device. So multi-factor authentication can be one of the condition on the conditional access policy, but you can't create conditional access policy from multi-factor authentication, right? Making sense, team? All of us? Chances are less. Because AZ 900 do not talk about further level of the multi-factor authentication over there, right? So chances are less that this question will come in AZ 900. Even if it is there, it is just to prepare yourself, I mean, for a tough questions basically. Right? Because none of your AZ 900 lab will include going to the Azure Active Directory and creating a conditional access policy for sure. Because for conditional access policy, you required premium P2 license, and AZ 900 have the labs only for creation of the resources, not to customize any of the resources to enhance the security, especially. So this you can expect in AZ 104 or AZ 500, but never in 900. Less likely.
Okay.
All right. So the same condition applied for your AZ 204. that in the AZ204, as a candidate as certification, you are responsible for participating in all phases of the development, including the requirements gathering, design, development, deployment, security, maintenance. Now, when we say security, it is from the code baseline, performance tuning, and the monitoring. So you should be proficient in Azure SDK, that is your software development kit, data storage options and data connections, API, application program interface, apps authentication, and your authorization, compute and the container deployments and debugging. So to implement solution, your partner with Azure Solution Architect, DBA, DevOps, infrastructure, and your infrastructure administrators and the other stakeholders, right? So you must have heard about the development team is reaching out to the solution architect and the administrator to get a particular part done. Let's say I'm developing a code, my code has a dependency. I need to test this code, whether it is making the connection and able to make the changes with the database or not, whether it is able to reach out to the keyword, right? So they have the dependency on your administrator and the architects, right? That how the design was created and which resources that we need to communicate and what syntax that we need to write to communicate with those components, right? So it has a dependency. So again, you know the drill. Just look for the examination and schedule it. From there, again, no penalty. 120 minutes will be allocated over here. Multiple choice, drag and drop, right? So it's the same situation that you will have, and the passing marks will be again 700. Now here, if you are aware about developing an Azure compute solution, right? So let's say I have an app service plan or I have a container and the AKS, right? So in the Kubernetes, if I need to put any sort of the code, right? So how to write a code for a container and how to declare it in the YAML manifest file. Further, if I'm writing any C# code, .NET code, what can be the syntax associated with that, right? For a web-based application, which will be hosted on your app service or on a VM. So if that is the case, VM is less likely because VM is nothing, just your on-premises approach, that is your infrastructure as a service, right? So you put SDK just like your on-premises. But others like app service, container, AKS, right, required proficiency of coding. Develop your Azure solution. So if I'm writing the code and that particular code needed communication with your storage account, and within the storage account, you are storing certain things. So how those SaaS token will be utilized, how you can go ahead and create and authenticate with the help of code baseline. So that is needed. Implement your Azure security. Again, that if any syntax has to be written in order to enable certain settings, which will only communicate with the private endpoint, not with any other components, or monitor your solution. Let's say I have created an application. In my application inside, I need to do real user monitoring or a synthetic monitoring, how many active sessions are available, and depending on my changes, right, how I can improve the performance of the application. So you need to have an understanding of the monitoring solution, that how I can look for that required logs which can help me getting the required information. Connect to and your consume your Azure services with the third-party services. So this required integration of the code. Let's say I have a data factory and the data factory has certain dependency on a code based line. Or let's say if I have a code and I have certain solution outside Azure, probably on the on-premises, how I can integrate them with the help of that, what particular connection string that it will be looking for, and how the syntax will be changed if I'm making a criteria to authenticate from a secret through the keyword, or let's say the authentication method that I'll be changing from the certificate instead of the secret. So these are the components that you can utilize. Now we have a questions over here. You have two Hyper-V hosts named as host 1 and host 2. Host 1 has your Azure virtual machine name as VM1 that was deployed using your custom Azure Resource Manager template. You need to move VM1 to host 2. What should you do? So the first is from your update management blade. So I'm not sure, team, how many of you are developer. Update management plane you utilize for patching of the operating system. So if you have any runtime or any particular patch related with Microsoft security services, that you go ahead and enable so that the machine can be patched. Further, you have the options like from your redeploy blade. Redeploy blade comes into the picture, something which has already been created by a template. Then you can redeploy with the help of the same template. Or let's say during the deployment of the template, let's say deployment has failed. And now you are customizing the template and you are trying to redeploy the same line of a code with some customization. So if these are not the two options that you are looking for, because here what is the requirement for the moving of the resources, not to redeploy any sort of the resources associated with that. Further, you have profile blade and modify the usage of the location. So when we talk about moving of the resources over here, we are talking about moving of the resources from one resource group to the another, one subscription to the another, to make the changes associated with the policies or to make the changes associated with the billing boundary. So that is only possible if you are moving the resources from one subscription to the another or one resource group to the another. So option B fulfills the criteria that you can just simply go to the resource and you can utilize the move option to move the resources. This do not involve any code baseline or neither redeployment associated with the template. Is this making sense, team? The word move itself says, right? So when you create any particular machine, right, go to the overview pane, you have a move option. So that move options you will only see for the resource group and the subscription. Do we have any move option for the template? Template do not require a move, right? You can just copy and paste the code and you can execute it with a certain customization, right? That will be a new resource that you are creating, not the previous one getting moved to any other part, right? And if you are physically moving the resources, that we call it migration. Again, the migration is not the case, right? The resource group level movement and the subscription level movement, and the answer B satisfy that condition. Clear?
Yeah.
All right. Proceeding further, your company has an Azure subscription. You need to deploy a number of virtual machine to the subscription by using your resource manager ARM template. The virtual machine will be included in a single availability set. And you need to ensure that your ARM template allows for as many virtual machine as possible to remain accessible in the event of your fabric failure or the maintenance. Which of the following value that you should configure for the platform update domain count and the property over here? So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the fall domain and the updated domains, right? So here we have availability set and the availability zone. Availability set, let's say in a location, you have multiple availability zone, let's say in East US. So let's say I'm going into portal.azure.com. And let's say I'm going into the VM, right? So as per the requirement, you are utilizing the template, right? And that particular template you will be utilizing for what particular purpose? For deploying multiple machines, right? So you have availability options, and here you get availability zone and the availability set options. As per the questions, you are using availability set. Now in the availability set, you have an option to select your fall domain and the updated domain. So updated domain can be selected max 20 over here. It cannot go beyond that. Now coming back over here, it says which of the following value you should configure for the platform domain property over here, and you have a criteria 10, 20, 30 and 40. So 30 and 40 is out of the picture anyways, right? Is this making sense? Why it is out of the picture, team? Only thing that you
It
can
is.
select over here is A to B only, right? But over here, what it says that you are creating Azure Virtual Machine by using Azure Resource Manager, and the machine will be included in a single availability set, and you need to ensure allows the as many virtual machine as possible. So they are not asking directly that what is the maximum number of the updated domain, right? But they are saying as many as possible. So they are pointing towards the maximum number. Make sense? All right. So again, so we are in the portal, right? So this is availability set, right? This is the availability criteria, right? So we have selected availability set here, right? So availability set is nothing. It's a single data center with multiple fault domains. Those are racks and the updated domain through which Microsoft plan their maintenance, right? Why they are asking this kind of a question? Because being a developer, you are giving that in the form of the code. So until a developer is not aware about this, they will not give a right number over here. So you have to be aware about the high availability requirement. Only then you will be able to pick the right number that you will going to pass in your template. Make sense? Okay, let me ask this thing in a way, Rohit. When you deploy any web application, right, you will also deploy a database, right? Yes or no? Yep. All right, a web application and a database in a two-tier architecture, right? Now, let's say if this web application is a public-facing application, right? You require a firewall, network firewall, for sure. Because let's say if you are creating a banking application, right? Banking application keeping non-secure, right? You access over the
Yes,
HTTPS, it required a certificate, and there will be a firewall for sure, right? For the packet inspection. Make sense? Okay. Now, being a
Yes,
developer, let's say you have a development environment. So let's say it's a two-tier application, a web application and the database, right? So you will going to
Okay.
create 4 of them, right? One for the development team, one for the
Yes.
QA team, one for the UAT, and one for the production, and one for disaster recovery. 5 environment, right?
Okay.
4 environment will be in the same region. The 5th environment will be in the different locations so that disaster recovery can take place or the traffic can be distributed if your production goes down, right? DR environment. As we have these 5 environments, right? Definitely we're going to have 5 different URLs for the web application because one going to be utilized for the development team who is making the changes in the code frequently, right? And deployment will be happening through CI/CD pipeline. Then you have another environment for the QA where will be the regression testing, unit testing, integration testing, functional testing will be happening. Then you have a UAT environment where penetration testing, load testing will be happening that the application can bear. And then the code will move to your production environment, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how many firewalls we would like to deploy here for 5 environment? Should I have a separate firewall per environment, or should I create a common firewall and I can integrate with all these 3 environments or 4 environment or 5 environment as much we have, right? So if I have a common firewall, I'm saving that money, right? And where will be creating a firewall in a network? So a single firewall network will be integrated with all these networks, right? You got hub and spoke them. Now, which company do not need that? All of them needed it, right? Proceeding further. So about AZ 500 examination, it is something which is more over your security oriented examination. So your Azure security engineer, you should implement, manage and monitoring security for the resources, multi-cloud hybrid environment as the part of end-to-end infrastructure. You recommend security components and configure to protect the following: identity and the access, data application and the networks. Your responsibilities as your Azure security engineer includes managing the security posture. Security posture means that security at every layer: AD level security, network level of the security, perimeter level of the security, compute level of the security, application level of the security, data level of the security, right? Data security required encryption, application required certificate and the secret to be protected, which you have the key vault and your certificate and certificate rotation will come into the picture. Perimeter level of the security includes your DDoS protection, distributed denial of service, and your firewall. And your network level of the security includes your network security group and application security group. And your Azure level security talks about how to utilize conditional access control, identity protection services, privilege identity access management, how to utilize multi-factor authentication and all. So one should have a complete understanding of all these components. Making sense, team? Yes, no, maybe. With implementation and experience.
I
That is the
understand
reason
that.
they say that, that particular profile has a minimum 10 years or 15 years of the experience, because they understand that people who have 2 years or 3 years experience, they will definitely not going to touch all these particular portions. So this is a senior level position, right? Whatever we are discussing, what all certification you think that you are prepared? Can I say that you are prepared for AZ 900? Pick
No.
certification one by one. So AZ 900 is prepared with your job oriented, right? Okay. AZ 104? Prepared. Okay. AZ 500? Why you said no? So say I don't know instead of no. There are two different, right? I don't know is a possibility. No, it's a job oriented only. The thing is, when you say no, it means that I'm certain that it is not the case. When you say I don't know, that I'm not aware. Help me understanding it, right? Manage identity. Are you aware about it? So you are aware about the first module of AZ 500, right? What is Microsoft? Choice of word is important, yeah? Especially when you said that, okay, AZ 500 we have not covered. Now
I see that
we have
we've
more of
covered.
covered, right? Now
I
it is
have a
now
lot to
if you
do.
see right now, right? So when you say things, right, AZ 500 prepared or not, spend some time all this particular topic, right? Now
Yes,
proceeding
we did.
further, when we talk about compute storage and database, let me know which particular portion that you feel like it is new. I'm not aware of it, right? ACR, Azure Container Registry, Azure Kubernetes, right? So when I approach to the job oriented, right, I complete the entire discussion on the infra piece as well as how to cover the security, as well as how you will be able to manage them, right? So your administrator and the security will be covered together itself. You're talking about again possibility route. Spend some time, go and complete the lab for AZ 500 as well, and let me know which particular labs
Okay.
that you are finding the difficulty. And if you're not having the difficulty, it means you are aware about it.
Okay.
So these are the
Gotcha.
labs, right?
Thank you.
Azure Firewall, Network Security Group, Application Security Group, Role-Based Access Control. Which particular
Yeah.
portion that you feel like that, okay, anything, something new coming, I'm not aware. So we covered AZ 500, right? So yeah, you can go for that examination as well, Ruth, without any hesitation. Yeah. All right. Team, any questions? Are we good? Ruth, let me know. Don't be hesitant asking the question, right? So you saw, right, all the
Yeah,
topics
I
that we
will.
have in the AZ 500 as well. All right, team. So again, you know that drill. You can go ahead and book your examination. You have no penalty for any incorrect questions, multiple choice. Drag and drop again. You can just go ahead and have some questions like that. 120 minute of the duration. And again, you can review your questions and do mark your answers as well, right? So here we have 4 modules. Secure your identity access management, which is a similar module to the Azure Administrator. The only difference between Azure Administrator is it is moreover about the implementation and talk slightly less in terms of the security. However, when we talk about your AZ 500, it talks more how to create conditional access control and those policies, which is not the case with your AZ 104. AZ 104, how to manage the users, group of the users, from where you will be utilizing, right? Navigation associated with the options. Networking over here, it's again your service endpoint, private endpoint, firewall, and your network security group. You will not see much of the discussion around your VNet pairing VPN gateway over here. That will be more in your AZ 104. Secure your compute storage and the database. So again, in the database, you don't need to worry about the costing and the pricing tier here. That is moreover in AZ 104. Here you need to be aware about how to use transparent data encryption, how to integrate with the key vault. You do have a choice available that you can utilize. Further, you have whitelisting of the IPs that you can do over here. In the storage account, how to utilize shared access signature, how to utilize your tokens for the shared access signature. And further, if you are creating any particular container, whom you will be giving the accessibility. If you're creating a key vault, how you can assign the access via Azure access policies to the key vault, giving a get and set permission. And again, your secure Azure using your Microsoft Defender for Cloud and the Microsoft Sentinel. So here it is moreover towards your monitoring requirements where you should be aware about like all the log analytics workspace component. But when it comes to the security, we are talking about the scanning of the logs that will be done through your Microsoft Defender and your Azure Sentinel. So you can see the weightage that if you're aware about the security of the Azure AD, 15 to 20%, you can easily crack. Securing networking 20 to 25%, and from the compute and the storage 20 to 25%. And again, for the monitoring and your defender and how to manage these components, having a higher weightage over here, which is not the case with your AZ 104. If you notice in the AZ 104, monitoring was only 10%. Have you noticed, team? The last option, monitoring and your manage your Azure resources, very less emphasized over here, right? But when you are from the security, you can simply see here Microsoft is emphasizing more in terms of monitoring aspect. Making sense, team, all of us? And the another thing, what is Microsoft Defender for Cloud? What you do from there?
Yeah.
When you say secure score, right? That Microsoft is giving you the recommendation to enhance your security. What Microsoft is doing? Monitor, right?
Wow.
It will be scanning, right? Now, let's say Sentinel need to take any particular action without a scanning of your logs. How you will decide whether the threat is? Right, so it required enhanced understanding of the monitoring that you should know in and out, that from where you can include the subscription in your Defender, and if you have it, right, from where you can enable the policy, or let's say if you would like to include the resources, right, you have to emphasize more on the Defender recommendation in comparison to any other resource. Yeah. All right, team. So let's have some questions on the security aspect now. Now, your company recently created an Azure subscription, and you have been uh, tasked with making sure that a specified user is able to implement Azure AD privilege identity management. Which of the following is the role you should have to the user? Who can create PIM? That's the global administrator, right? So REST may handle the things associated with that, but answer will
They
be your
don't
global
create
administrator.
users.
Clear? All right.
Only
I mean, see,
user.
it's a plug and play kind of a thing, right? I mean, if you other roles do not have the ability, right? So there is nothing to explain because password administrator can change the password, compliance administrator can make the policies, security administrator will have the admin level accessibility and it can have a greater level of the accessibility in comparison to any Azure AD roles. But global administrator can do anything in the cloud, and privilege identity administrators are, I mean, privilege identity access management we usually create for the administrators. So if I need to create something for the security administrator and for the other global administrator for the PIM, again, I need to have a global administrator rights, right? It can
It
come
can
over
be,
there
yeah.
as well. It can be
It's
because
not
they are
typical.
saying around, let's say 20% or 15%, right? So as the percentage is less, but this can be a question over there as well because these are interrelated, right? Now, another questions. Your company has an Azure Active Directory, or now a name is Microsoft Intra ID Forest with a single domain named, was the name over here, waylandindustries.com, and they also have an Azure Active Directory tenant with the same name. You have been tasked to integrating your Active Directory and your Azure AD tenant. So basically from the on-premises Active Directory, you need to integrate Azure Active Directory or Microsoft Intra ID. And you intend to deploy Azure AD Connect. Your strategy for integration must make sure that the password policy and your user logon limitation affects user accounts that are synchronized to the Azure AD, and the number of the necessary servers are reduced. So you recommend to use pass through authentication with seamless single sign-on with password has synchronization. Does the solution meet the goal over here? This question can come in AZ-104 as well. Okay, let's understand this theme. We usually discuss this, but let's talk about what are the authentication method. First of all, they are talking about on-premises to the cloud synchronization. That's where your AD Connects comes into the picture. Now, in the AD Connect, we have a choice. Do you want to sync the user password or you would like to keep credential on-premises? So if you want to sync username and the password, the option is password has synchronization. Pass-through authentication when you are keeping the credential on premises, and if the user tried to log in, the verification happens in your on premises. Clear? Now, as per this particular situation, they are saying that both are allowed. Yes or no? Does it fill the
Yes.
criteria? It is meeting the criteria, right?
So
That you
it's
can have.
limited since the
So there is
two
no
of them
such
are allowed.
hindrance that you can have a blocker over you any condition. They are saying that you can use both of it, right? It makes sense, right? So basically, what I'm saying is that you need to have a backstory reference to connect the dots, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Just like if you watch a movie, right? Let's say if you're watching a Marvel movie, right? Now in the Marvel movie, probably let's say in the Avenger Endgame, there are characters, right? But if I will give you an example that who is the character having a capability to have a hammer in the hand, right? And if
Right.
somebody says that who else can have that particular capability, you can easily say that it is Thor and Captain America, right? Apart from that, until and unless you don't know the backstory, what was the criteria, you will not be able to answer that. Probably
That's
people
it.
who have not watched the entire series, they will not say that it is a Captain America, or maybe you got the point, right? So basically, you should have the
Yes.
backstory associated with that. That's it. Okay. Now about your examination for AZ-305. Now again, AZ-305 is an expert level examination. So definitely this is going to have its own challenges in terms of the decision making, more confusing options, right? So this exam for the AZ-305, Design Microsoft Azure Infrastructure Solution. As an Microsoft Azure Solution Architect, you have subject matter expertise in designing cloud and the hybrid solution that run on Azure, including your compute, network, storage. So here, your responsibilities for this role include advising stakeholders and translating business requirements into design for Azure solution that align with your Azure well-architected framework, right? So you should be aware about how the framework works. I mean, what all things that you need to include in your architecture, right? From the security perspective, performance perspective, connectivity perspective, right? And from the cloud adaptation framework, because the company can come up and ask you migrating your components from the on-premises to the cloud, you need to create an architecture for those solution. You need to create distribution as per the cost. So you should be aware about how to create multiple subscription, what kind of the different subscriptions can be utilized, what will give more benefit in terms of the cost as well. So your cost management should be on your tips. Your resource management should be on the tips, that what can be the solution, right? How to take a decision. So most of the time, the decision that you end up taking from the security, performance, and the cost perspective. These are the three major criterias that any particular organization functions. Apart from that, you can include automation as well, that what all the things that can help you achieving the requirement in less overheads. So that less manageability overhead can be a criteria as well, but majorly performance in terms of computer networking. So performance is one thing, security is another thing, and the cost is the another contributor over here. So as you can see, it includes compute, networking, storage, monitoring, and your security as well. Now, proceeding further, as a part of this examination, right? Again, you know that drill. So here, what you do, you just type AZ305 exam, and in this AZ305 examination, so there is one type over here. On the top, it should be AZ305. So here you will have design identity governance monitoring solution, design data. So here you can see it is not implement. In AZ104 and AZ305, right? These are the same thing, right? But instead of the design in the beginning, it was implementing was there, right? Now here we are talking about the designing data storage solution, designing your business continuity, like when to use the backup, when to have the disaster recovery, when to have the high availability requirement. Design your infrastructure solution, like your hub and spoke architecture, which particular resource will be placed where in the architecture to get the required benefit and the implementation done. So if you know your governance, if you know how to have the policies and your monitoring solution, you can easily score 25 to 30%. If you design the data solution over here, you can easily score 20 to 25%, that I know that which particular storage account to be utilized, whether I should be using a standard tier or the premium tier, which setting I should enable in that particular storage account, where it should not indulge in more cost. So if you remember, in your storage account, we had options: soft delete, what will be the duration of the soft delete, do we require versioning, whether it will like to keep each and individual copy after every modification. Now that can impact your cost like anything if somebody is mismanaging that. So let's say how many resources will be created, what kind of the resources will be created, what tier that these resources will be running in, those sort of the decision on this, you can easily score 20 to 25%. Designing your business continuity solution, you can easily score 15 to 20%. So business continuity, business BCDR, your backup and disaster recovery, traffic manager for your active, Azure front door for your active, disaster recovery for active, high availability. You have load balancer, application gateway that you can utilize over here. Further, when we talk about failover, right? So one should be aware about recovery service vault, how they will go ahead and replicate the resources, right? Those sort of the components, right? And how they will go ahead and take the backup, whether it is a VM backup that you will be taking using recovery service vault, or whether you will be taking the data backup associated with your storage account, or it's a SQL backup and the disaster recovery that you are planning with the help of your SQL pass. So, and designing your solution for your networking infrastructure. So that is a common piece, but moreover from the design perspective. Again, multiple choice questions. You will get yes or no, drag and drop, fill in the blanks choices, no penalty for a negative question. And again, the duration will be 120 minutes. And again, you will get an option to review. 700 marks is the passing for the examination. Okay. Now here's the question. You have 100 servers that runs on Windows Server 12 R2 and host Microsoft SQL 2014 instances, right? And the instance host databases that have the following characteristics. Stored procedures are implemented using the CLR. The latest database is currently at 3 TB. None of the databases will exceed 4 terabyte of the size of the storage. And you plan to move all the data from your SQL server to the Azure. So basically, it includes two things. It is saying that you should migrate the resources from the on-premises to the cloud. We should have the capability for running these databases on a defined operating systems, and ensure that the user can authenticate by using Azure Active Directory. So basically, your users are in Azure Active Directory. So these are the on the cloud users, and minimize the number of the database changes required to facilitate the migration. What should you include in the recommendation? All right, team. Now, how to approach this, because looks like a complex question, isn't it? Every
Stuff.
complex problem has a basic solution. So when you see a complex problem, try to look for something which is familiar, right? So when it says that none of the database will exceed 4 terabyte, it means either it is SQL pass or managed instance. It cannot be your VM. Can you guarantee a VM can only have 4 terabyte of storage? It cannot have more. Team, it can have
Okay.
more, right?
Yeah.
Machine, you can attach multiple disks. If you have a bigger size machine, you can attach up to 64 disks as well, right? With 1 terabyte each. It will have a very big capacity, right? So first of all, it is saying none of the database will exceed 4 terabyte. So you can achieve this with the help of the disk as well, right? So that is one case which is pointing towards that you should have a cloud-based solution, right? Another thing, it is trying to reduce the manageability overhead. If you try to use the VM, manageability overhead will decrease or increase. It will increase. You need to do the patching of the OS. You need to do the sizing of the machine. Every time that you try to attach a new disk, right, you need to make sure that your performance should be in accordance. Again, you end up increasing the size, right? It requires more manageability overhead. You end up managing the networking piece as well, right? Team. So it cannot be a VM.
Yes.
So now
Okay.
in Azure, we have two choices, a SQL pass and Azure managed instances. Now see the first line. 100 server that run Windows Server 2012. If you are using a SQL pass, can you guarantee what operating system you will be using? You can't. It's a patch solution. It doesn't gives you that capability that you should pick a choice of the OS. It is for further reducing the manageability criteria. But it is saying you should reduce the manageability criteria. That too, you should have the capability of choosing Windows Server 2012 and the SQL 14 instances. And then you have the users on the cloud. So basically, here they are not talking about any synchronization of AD Connect. Clear, team? So over here, your option D is out of the picture, right?
Yes.
Option A is the elastic pool, which talks about that you can save the money by putting your database instances in a elastic pool. So you can create elastic pool of X performance and Y storage. And if you have multiple databases, want them to share the compute, that is your elastic pool, which is not the case over here. So D, A and D is out of the picture. Clear, team? Making sense? Everyone?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Azure SQL database, single database, right? We are talking about 100 servers, right? How a single database which have the limitation up to 4 terabytes will satisfy the need? C is out of the picture. Anyways, clear?
Yes.
But
Sounds
even
So
if
clear.
this,
the question is coming as an Active Directory or Azure Active Directory, you should be aware of it, right? You can't
right.
question Microsoft, right? Why you have mentioned Azure Active Directory? Why not Intra ID? You got the point, right?
Oh,
Either way, if they change it, it is well and good. If they have not changed it, that should not be the reason that you'll be flunging it.
mm,
You got the point. Do your
okay.
best, prepared for the worst. Clear? So
Yeah.
make sure that we are aware about it, right? Let's say if I'm saying Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft had changes 3 years back. But let's say there is an old document, right? Let's say you're working in a company, it is written as Security Center. You should know that what document is talking about. Clear? Because examination is basically is a door for the implementation that you will going to do for the organization, right? So you should be aware of these, right? Not very outdated. I will not expect somebody to be aware about something in 2015, but at least 2022-23 terminology should be aware of. Clear, team? So it's been around 1 year almost that Microsoft has changed the name to the Intra ID. All right. Another question that you have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Blob storage, account name storage one, and you have on-premises file server name server one that runs Windows Server 2016. Server one stores 500 gigabytes of your company files. You need to store a copy of a company files in the server one in storage one. Which two Azure services achieve the goal? And each correct answer presents a complete solution over here. Alrighty. So let's talk about more on this, right? So we are talking about copying the data, right? From one server to the another, right? So this logic app integration account, what is the requirement of the logic app? Why we use a logic app, team?
Done without.
People from job oriented codes. Did we talk about Azure function logic app? See, whatever you are seeing, all the five options, right? All is helping you achieving the automation some way or to the another. So we need to look for the specification of the commonalities, right? What is a batch account? To automate your batch processes, right? What is your data factory? To automate data transformation, right? From a particular, right? Again, it's a pipeline. It will be a workflow. It will be an automation, right? When we talk about Azure import process, right? Somebody writing a script to copy a particular data from a one location to the another, right? And by giving the location, it is trying to automate the process for moving all kind of the data that will be stored in that particular location. And logic app is again, it is an automated approach for achieving it. Team? Logic app is a serverless compute model that you can use or you can use on the app service. It is for the event-driven mechanism.
Okay.
Okay. So logic app will come into the picture when you may want to integrate on the basis of an event, right? But over here, what you're trying to achieve over here?
It's just a
Copying the
copy.
data. Logic app will be having API connectors that you integrate with your Azure resources, third party, and to integrate multiple components, right? But when we
Okay.
talk about a logic app, does logic app be a choice for copying the data? It will be an expensive choice, isn't it, team?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Because copying of the data, you may have very big size of the data. See the size of the data, team? 500 gigabytes. So if you're going to run the logic app for moving that kind of the data, how much money you end up paying? Not worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Import and export, you can
Microsoft,
do
right?
that, right? You can use AZ copy for that. You can utilize your
Easy
PowerShell
copy
command,
can be
right?
used.
AZ
Okay.
copy can be used as well, right? So Azure import
Yes.
and export, if you are a developer, if you're a PowerShell developer, right, you must be aware about this particular tool that you can easily do that, right? Easy way
Get
of
that.
doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we talk about Azure Batch account, right, let's talk about the last one, E. Azure Batch services when you are dealing with the HPC, high performance compute, and during the high performance compute, you need to run several jobs in parallel so that you can achieve a particular goal in less time. Where your batch jobs comes into the picture, that you would like to automate your multiple job and try to achieve parallelism in terms to achieve a particular criteria. Now,
Didn't say
that is
that.
nothing to do with the data. It can be for any particular application type as well. Is this making
Okay.
sense? So it is not
Makes
specific
sense.
to the data movement at all. It is for any particular development job which required multiple execution in parallel. The concept can be multi-threading as well. It can be multiple triggers as well, right? So Azure Batch is not the solution that somebody need to approach for data movement at all. So A is out, E is out. Let's talk about D. Azure Analysis Service on-premises data gateway. Now it is an on-premises data gateway. Analysis is the requirement when you need to create any sort of the dashboards that you would like to create. Probably a Databricks dashboard that I would like to have, or probably a dashboard through the Power BI that I would like to have it. And for that, I required an analysis server that it's supposed to analyze and publish a dashboard. Requirement? Do we have a dashboard requirement here? Do we need any particular
Not at all.
your dashboard monitoring solution or to be created over here? No. So A, D, N, E is out. Data Factory. The name itself says Data Factory. So Data Factory can help you creating multiple pipeline for the data migration or data transformation. Further, you can also have a copy option as well, that you can create a copy pipeline, which is not doing the transformation of the data, and you can copy the data from one location to the another. Now, out of all the options, right, they are saying that you have multiple choice, right? So something which is more appropriate will be option B. But if
So,
in case organization already using data factory, creating one pipeline will not going to cost them much because they are already using data factory. Making sense? Team, any particular, let's say it does not say which two for an example, right? Now you are selecting all the choices, right? This I can do in all the options. So any particular question which will have the possibility of all the options, try to look for the option all of the above. Clear, Gagan? It will be, but you will not get a full mark. Sorry about that, team. All right. Are we clear with this? Yeah, Pankaj, your query is answered? If that is the option, right? You can use it, right? And further, there are other options as well. For an example, you can use data boxes as well, right?
Yes.
You have data box disk, data box gateway as well that you can utilize. Further, you do have a choice available with the help of Azure Storage Explorer as well, right? That you can directly upload the data. Clear? So there are many options that you can choose. right? B and C is the only correct option. I mean, if you select B or D, you will get partial marks for B. Question is of 20 marks, let's assume, right? So if you only select B, you will get 10 marks, right? And there will be incorrect, so there will be no negative marking, right? So Gagan has asked, what if I select all of it? It will include those as well, but the question will become null and void, you will get 0. But let's say you selected B and D, one is correct, one is incorrect, you'll still get the partial marks. That is 10 marks out of 20. Clear? Let me ask this thing. You go and apply for a vote, for an example, right? And you mark all the candidates. So what will happen? They will consider the vote as valid. Edwin, question becomes null and void that, okay, this is not the way that you approach a question, right? So definitely, right? You should not do that. If that is the case, there should be an option all of the above. Look for that. If you feel like any question has such kind of a thing, look for the option all of the above. There is no way that we'll be marking with all the options.
Okay.
Clear? If that is the
Yeah.
case, there will be an option all of the above. If that's the story. Yep.
Okay.
All right. That is what I mentioned, Rohit, that that is what Pankaj is asking. We also have a Azure file sync service that can be utilized as well, which is not in the option. You also have data boxes. What I mentioned, the data boxes can be utilized. Data box gateway can be utilized. The storage explorer can be utilized. These are alternative options for moving the data around. Make sense?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not the least, AZ500 examination. That is your DevOps engineer, right? So for this one, an Azure DevOps engineer, your developer or an infrastructure administrator who also have a subject matter expertise in working with the people, process, product to enable continuous delivery of the value in the organization. Your responsibilities for this particular role includes delivering Microsoft DevOps solution that provide continuous security integration, testing, delivery, deployment, monitoring, and the feedback. You design and implement flow of work and the collaboration, communication, source control, and the automation. As a DevOps engineer, you work on cross-functional teams that include developers, site reliability engineers, and Azure Administrator and the Azure security engineers. Definitely your pipeline, which is doing the deployment either via infrastructure as a code or deploying any particular code, need authentication and the authorization. Again, you need to assign roles to your DevOps engineers as well, build administrator, project administrators, who will be managing those DevOps related projects, right? Site reliability engineers, because the deployment will not be only happening in your development environment, it will be happening in all the environments like dev, QA, UAT, production, and the disaster recovery. So it does require site reliability engineers interference. And moreover, you will be more interacting with the developers who will be working on the code day in, day out as well. Again, we know the drill. AZ400 exam, select your location, book your examination. Again, multiple choice. Yes or no, drag and draw, fill in the blanks. Now, this particular examination required slight more time because the questions are slightly lengthier in comparison to the any other examination, or it will be equivalent to the solution architect. So it will be around 2 hours, 10 minutes over here. The same thing duration will be there over there for solution architect as well. And again, you can mark your answers and you can review it in the future, later stage, and you can have the passing marks 700. Now, in this particular section, you have design, implementing, process, and the communication. So in AZ400, we talk about like your Jira is a tool, right, for creating the tickets and assigning that particular task, right? In Azure, we have something called Azure boards through which you can create those items, you can distribute them, you can plan your strategy, you can create your charts, you can see how many items are open, how many are getting closed. You can manage the entire life cycle of a project, right? So if you're aware about it, you can easily score 10 to 15%. Design and implement a source control strategy that is between 10 to 15%. Source control is more about your build management. You will have a repository where you will going to have a code. You can create multiple feature branches. You can manage the policies around who can clone that particular repository, who are not allowed to clone, who can commit to the repo, who are not allowed to commit to a particular branch, which particular branch will be logged, build validation need to be included or not. So if you are aware about it, you can easily score 10 to 15% marks. Design and implement your built and release. Now, built and release is a major portion because it's a pipeline creation. It includes a lot of things like it includes your Microsoft hosted versus self-hosted agent. It includes the task. It includes your release strategy, dev, QA, UAT stages. It requires an approvers, release gates. It required integration with your Azure service connections, right? So it's a big requirement when it comes to the pipeline for build, where the scan of the code will be happening, your functional testing, your integration testing, and unit testing. That is one portion. And then in the release, you will have multiple stages, and there are different requirements to authenticate and authorize in that stage as well. So that includes majority of your examination questions, 50 to 55%, and developer security and the compliance. So in your pipeline, the code scanning tools will be needed. Like you can include your Sonar Cloud, you can include Metbolt, Veracode, that can be included, how to include those. And if I need to create a connections securely, if I'm creating a personal access token to authenticate any particular resource, how we can go ahead and do that. Implement an instrumentation strategy over here. So what tools that you should use, right? So there are several tools that can be utilized for automation. Let's say you can utilize template. You can bring that template in you as a bicep in your pipeline as well for creating infrastructure as a code. You can utilize Terraform as well. So it is not that you should have a Terraform understanding, but you should be aware how those particular tools can be integrated and how you can go to your Visual Studio marketplace and you can integrate those particular tools. So that includes 5 to 10%. Now the questions. So you need to consider underlined segment for establish whether it is an accurate. The burn-up vigilant measures the elapsed time from the creation of the work items to their completion. Select no adjustment required if the underlined segment is accurate. If the underlined segment is inaccurate, select the option over here. Does this question making any sense, team? If you're not a DevOps engineer, definitely it is going over the head. Yes or no? Team? If you see in this entire portion, right, which particular portion include this question? First one, right? Implementation of the process and the communication, what it is talking about? It is talking about burn-up vigilant to measure, right? What I mentioned, life cycle of a project, right? It is trying to measure that particular project lapse in time for the creation of the work item. Let's say in your software development life cycle, you have a requirement phase, right? You have to create those requirements, you have a sprint planning, and you assign those items. What they are saying that there is a lapse on time of the creation of the work item for the completion over here, right? So what they are saying, select no adjust required if underlining segment is inaccurate. So obviously it was inaccurate. That is the reason there was a lapse in time for the creating that particular item, right? Let's assume you have a construction in a house going on, right? You created the entire house and you forget that there is an additional item that needs to be created. Let's say a garage was not created, or probably a utility area is not created. So let's say if you're considering that requirement late, it will going to impact your life cycle of that project, right? The construction work will be delayed. Yes or no? Team, are we following? Similarly, if any particular requirement coming later stage, definitely it will going to impact. Now, what it is impacting? No adjust required, lead time, test result trend, or burn down charts. Now, burn down charts will be when your number of the items are getting created, but you are closing more items. For an example, I'm opening, let's say 10 Jira tickets or 10 Azure board tickets. My people are closing more items. It means I have less item and more people. It is burned down. People have ample amount of the time, which is not the case over here as per this. Here, there is a requirement of new item, which was not included previously. No adjustment required. Definitely we required an adjustment. It's a new item. So definitely first one and the last one is out of the picture. Test result trends. It is a creation of a work item. We are not testing any particular result over here, right? So definitely it will impact the life cycle of the project, right? So what would it will impact? Lead time. Is this making sense, team? Did we understood the question now? Okay. So what we talked about, let's say you have creation of any particular building for an example, right? So if you are not considering any particular item in the beginning, it will increase your timeline, right? For
Right.
the deliverable of the project. Okay. The same thing you can apply in your software development lifecycle. That if any particular web application is getting created, let's say a banking application. Now, let's say a banking application is supposed to have an option that the people can request for the checkbook. Let's say that option was not included. Now, suddenly a team is coming and saying that we required this particular option, right? Clear? Got the requirement?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, no adjustment required. That is not the case. You required an
Yes,
adjustment now.
yes,
So
yes.
first one is out of the picture. Burn down. Burn down is a situation. So there are two kind of the charts: burn up chart, burn down chart. For an example, I have 20 items that can I only able to distribute only 15 items. 5 items I want to distribute, but it will burdenize the people. It will burn up or burn down. You can handle 5 tasks. I'm giving you 7. Are you burned up or are you burned
Too
down?
much.
It is
Okay.
burned up, right? So if the
Yes,
items
it's
are more,
burnout.
people are over or less, that is the time that you need to check whether you have had the required skilled resource or not. If that is the
Okay.
case that you have already had, then you required more people. So you hire more people if it is burned up, or you check whether you have a skilled labor or not. But burn down
Okay.
is something when you have less work and more people. So when it is saying burn down, we are not talking about that scenario anyways.
No.
Out of the
Mhm.
picture. Now test result trend. Test result will be for the QA team to test those checks
Okay.
for any particular requirement. Let's say I'm creating a plan, right? Whether that plan is implementable or not, I need to check that particular trend, whether this is feasibility of that particular plan, right? We are not talking about the feasibility anyways. We are talking about the creation of a new item. It will going to impact the what? Life cycle. It will
Okay.
increase your lead time. Clear, team?
Clear. Clear.
All right.
That makes
And the
sense.
question, you are making use of Azure DevOps manage build pipeline and also deploying the pipeline. The development team is quite large and it's regularly added to. You have been informed that the management of the users and the licensing must be automated when it can be. Which of the following tasks that can't be automated? Can you assign a membership of the group automatically? License assignment can be done automatically. Let's say if you have a group of people having a particular license, if you move that particular user automatically in that group, and if that group already have the license, user will get the license automatically,
Because
right?
license.
So A and B is out of the picture because both can be automated. Assigning entitlements. Entitlements will be, let's say if you're logging to any particular application, what are application you would like to see, right? I can create the group and I can mention that which group of the application a user should be able to access if the user will be a part of a XYZ group. Clear? What cannot
Okay.
be done, that is your license procurement. Can you purchase a license with the automation?
No,
Can you
you
procure
can't.
it, team?
Okay.
Are we following this question, all of us? You can't do that with the help of any pipeline or any sort of the automation tool that you would like to achieve, right? All right, team. So general strategies, read both the question and the answer in the full time through your through the entire time that you have. Identify the feature and mention the answers. Pay attention to qualify the clauses and in most effective way and will be best fulfill. And these causes may eliminate the certain answers.
And that's a wrap. In today's session, we have covered how to prepare for your Azure certification exams with a solid strategy, from booking your exam to handling the pressure during the actual test. Remember, preparation is key, and with the right approach, you'll be ready to tackle even the trickiest exam questions. And if you want to take your Azure skills to the next level, don't forget to sign up for the free Azure Cloud Masterclass I have mentioned earlier. You can register through the link in the description or in the pinned comments. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. And don't forget to check out our previous videos right over here.